Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. Um, this event is going to be about the Freedom for Families Act, the introduction of Families for Freedom Act. Um, it's a companion bill that was introduced today by Senator Jeff Merkley and Representative Pramila Jayapal. This legislation would bar the continued spending of our tax dollars on immigrant family prisons and put an end to family detention. For far too long, this country has incarcerated immigrant families, an act that is always abusive, inhumane, unjust, and unnecessary. Now is the opportunity to put an end to the immoral and inhumane practice of family incarceration and ensure that no child or family is threatened by detention or separation because they are seeking safety. Today, we'll be hearing from the experts on family detention and why this heinous practice should come to an end, the families who have been through detention and incarceration. Now I'll pass the mic to Taisha Sentil, who will be giving you more context on what the Family Liberation Abolitionist Network, or FLAN, is.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. The Family Liberation Abolitionist Network is a new coalition that was established this year. It's composed of organizations and individuals around the country who are working together to end immigration family detention. As you may know, family detention is the inhumane and unjust policy of jailing immigrant parents with their children, and most times that includes babies. And we also know that families in detention centers receive little to no access to legal and social services. And oftentimes, these families experience widespread humane and civil rights violation. As it currently stands, the family detention program is the largest since the internment of Japanese Americans in the 1940s. So to rectify this issue, that's where we come in, and we center around organizing and people power, also recognizing that our collective liberation is interconnected. While our focus is to permanently end family detention, we move to abolish all detention and stand with all movements for decarceration. And we also connect the struggle of immigrant families to the struggles of all incarcerated people. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you, Taisha. And we'll now be hearing from Andrea Mesa from Raices, who is going to explain a little bit more about why we're here today.
Thank you, Adriana. My name is Andrea Mesa. I'm the director of the Family Detention Services Program at Raices. And since 2015, our organization and our team has offered free legal services to families detained in CARNs experiencing family incarceration. So while the Biden administration has currently moved away from long-term family detention and has released families held at the family prisons for months, they have made no commitment to end the practice of family detention altogether. Furthermore, the Biden administration continues the use of Title 42 to expel migrant adults and families seeking protection in the United States. The legality of Title 42 is currently the subject of extensive litigation, but we know that it's arbitrarily applied across the border and is not currently used against most minors who enter the United States alone. So the continued use of Title 42 causes family separation in multiple ways, including when families make the painful decision to send their children across the border alone, knowing that together they could face deportation with no chance to ask for protection. So we call for the end of Title 42 expulsions in their entirety. I bring up Title 42 here in this context because once it's no longer used to deport people, we could see the detention of families dramatically increase. Detention is never the answer to forced migration and displacement. Family detention is always abusive, inhumane, unjust, and unnecessary. Right now is the opportunity to put an end to the practice of family incarceration and ensure that no child or family is threatened with detention or separation because they came to seek safety. There's never been a better time or opportunity to leave behind the days of deterrence and punishment for migration, and instead embrace humane welcome and reception of migrant people. The country is ready. The Family Liberation Abolitionist Network celebrates the introduction of the Freedom for Families Act as a step toward the end of family incarceration and the permanent closure of all family prisons. This legislation would ensure that no federal tax dollars can be used for the operation and construction of any facility to imprison families, and would end operations of currently open family prisons following a 30-day phase-out period. We applaud Senator Merkley and Representative Jayapal for their efforts to end family detention, and we call on all of Congress to support this important bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And now we're very excited to be hearing from Lorena, who is a mother who was held at Berks for almost 2 years. Lorena, when you're ready.
Mucho gusto. Mi nombre es Lorena. Sí. Lastimosamente vine de mi país buscando refugio con mi hijo de apenas 3 años. Eso fue en el 2015 y pues lastimosamente caí en la detención de Berks por más de 700 días. Pero ahora, gracias a Dios, pues estoy libre y me siento muy contenta de ser parte de esta conferencia de prensa. Gracias por la oportunidad que me brindan y mi mensaje es para los que tienen el poder, ¿verdad? Especialmente el presidente, señor presidente, que por favor pueda poner un alto a las detenciones y más al centro de Berks. Como todos saben, pues es una cárcel. Que ellos digan que no es una cárcel, lo es, porque yo he vivido allí y no cuenta uno con la libertad que uno desea. Siempre está custodiado. Entonces es una cárcel. Entonces yo le pido al señor presidente, con todo respeto, que por favor pueda poner un alto a la detención de Berks y que no pueda encerrar a ninguna familia sin importar su origen, sin importar su raza, su color, su religión, y que es un gran daño que se le hace a las familias estar ahí. Lo digo por experiencia propia. Yo estuve ahí por más de 1 año, casi los 2, y ha costado mucho salir de ese tema. Incluso no me gusta recordarlo. Sí, por eso yo pido que nos unamos. Yo me uno también para que no permitamos que más familias puedan estar en ese lugar, y mucho menos que se pueda como usar el otro piso de ese edificio para encerrar más familias, porque estamos también en una pandemia y debemos tomar en cuenta eso. Y sí, es un trauma muy difícil. Y mi deseo es que se pudiera usar ese centro de detención para obras mejores, pero no para una cárcel, porque de por sí ya nosotros venimos con un trauma de nuestro país para poder venir a otro lugar, a otro trauma. Y sí, mi deseo de todo corazón que ese centro sea cerrado y que no haya ni una familia, ni un niño, porque es muy difícil estar ahí. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Lorena, for sharing your story with us and with everyone. We really appreciate you being here, and we admire how brave you are. Next, we're gonna watch a short video. The following statement is from a father who spent 6 months incarcerated 3 separated from his son under the zero tolerance, and 3 with his son in Carnes prison, in the Carnes family prison in Texas. He made this statement in the hopes that other families would not be subjected to imprisonment like he and his son were. We're going to listen to it, and then there's going to be an audio transcript read aloud in English. Jasmine, it looks like the audio statement isn't coming through. The audio isn't coming through. So why don't we just go ahead and read the transcript? And I'll have Linda Morris from Zero from Solidarity do that. Thank you.
Thank you. One in prison cannot do anything that they need to do. We spent 6 months detained in jail. The officers don't give you a hand. We came for a better future, and they understand everything to the contrary. To them, you don't matter. To be imprisoned 6 months is nothing easy. I would pass the day there with nothing to do. The boy would cry for his mother, that he wants to be with his mother, and then officers would administer drugs to not feel anything for the family. I did not know how to console my son because I was also imprisoned. I couldn't communicate with him. We were without communication with the outside world. We were separate from the outside world for 3 months. I couldn't even feel like a father. You can't do anything while imprisoned without release. I will now read a family statement from a Haitian father who was held at Berks for 10 months with his toddler and his wife during the pandemic. We feel like a canoe in the middle of the ocean without a place to anchor. We fled Haiti due to government violence against us. We were university students speaking out against human rights abuse, injustice. We were attacked, beaten, and barely escaped. My wife was pregnant. They raped her and unfortunately lost the baby due to sexual assault. We were forced to flee our home. First, we went to Chile, where racism and xenophobia forced us out again. We came to the US thinking this is where we will find refuge, only to be thrown in prison for more than 8 months. It is extremely painful to watch my baby growing up in this jail where I have absolutely no control over his well-being. He is often sick and unable to eat, and I am forced to watch my baby crying and can't even help him. We are human beings too. Our children are human beings too, and should not have to suffer like that.
Thank you, Linda. And unfortunately, we know that this is a story that has repeated itself many, many, many times. Whenever families are detained, these are the stories that they come back with. There's never an okay way to detain families or children. And so with that in mind, I'll pass it on to Prudence from PIC, who will give us our call to action.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Here's the ways you can get involved for call to action. As we know, the bedrock value of our country is freedom. When we deny families that freedom, we are threatening freedom itself. For far too long, our country has incarcerated immigrant families and acts, and it's always abusive, inhumane, unjust, and unnecessary. So we're calling on you today, the public. These are ways you can get involved. Tell Congress to support the Freedom for Family Act. Freedom for Family Act is a bill that will bar our tax dollars from being spent on family prison, which we mentioned earlier. become a sponsor of this Freedom for Family Act. Tell the White House to end family detention. President Biden and Vice President Harris and DHS Secretary Mayorkas can stop detaining families immediately. They do not have to wait as we pass the Freedom for Family Act. Let's hold President Biden to his campaign promise. It's demand the White House to end family detention and free the families. Please sign our petition, which we will be dropping in the chat and on our live, so you can get that. The phone number to call is 202-282-8495, and the email to email the White House. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please play a part and take part in helping us support this campaign and to end family detention and to free all the families, free them all. Thank you, Adriana.
Thank you, Prudence. And that concludes the programmatic part of our agenda. We'll now take questions from the press. If you can please either use the raise your hand function if you want to come on video and ask the question. You can also drop it in the chat. Please make sure to identify yourself and what network you're working with. And then if you have a question directed specifically at someone, you can ask that, or if not, anyone from the coalition can take the question. While we wait for those questions to come in, Jasmine, do you mind sharing your screen with the call to action so that people can have the phone number and the email and everything? Thank you. I don't see any questions so far in the chat. If you want to come off mute and ask a question, you're free to do that as well. If we don't have any questions, we can close this press conference. We're always available via email. Everyone in the press should have our press release, which has our press contacts. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And thank you so much, Lorena, for sharing your story once again. We really appreciate your time and being here. Thank you, everyone.